Hi, this is 36581 and this is my buddy read review for 2023. So I did a video like this last year, so I thought I would do another one for 2023. And this is all of the buddy reads that we did with Katie, the lovely Katie, who's been really, really supportive throughout both 2023 and 2022 and before. I absolutely love having these buddy reads once a month because we're so relaxed about it. And if something's not working out for one of us, it's fine. It's fine. We don't stress about it. And I think that's probably the best way to have a buddy read, is to just be like very forgiving of ourselves, um, and to be supportive of what's going on in our lives. So thank you very much, Katie, as always, for doing these buddy reads with me. So yeah, let's start the review of our 2023 reads. So let's go through what we read for the year of 2023. In January, we read Deadlock. This is Saki Aida and Yu Takashina, and this is a 4-volume series about a man who has to go undercover into a prison to discover something that's been going on and try and find the head honcho of some shady organisation. He's been framed for a murder that he didn't commit. For February, we did the 2 volumes that are available for Rabbit Man, Tiger Man. This is by Akira Honma. June Manga only published the first 2 volumes, but there are now 5 volumes in Japanese, and I think we should have them all. This is a story about a Yakuza who gets treated by a very scared, smaller doctor and ends up becoming completely enamored. The Yakuza then tries to seduce the doctor. For March, we had Rin. This is a 3-volume series. This is also by June Manga. I did not realize that we did 3 in a row. This is by Satoru Kanagi and Yukine Honami. This is the older trim size, large with the pink bottoms. So it's quite an older title. I've had these 3 volumes for the series for quite some time and never got around to reading it, so we did it for this year. This is a story about a Kyudo team in high school, so it's a sports manga with an older brother's best friend, boyfriend type situation, and it was really good. In April, we had a versus situation where we read 2 long-running series. One is Crimson Spell by Ayano Yamane, and this is 6 volumes at the moment in print in English. We are waiting for the 7th and I think final volume, so that should be coming out soon. And we also read Punch Up. This is by Shioko Kano, and this is at the moment a 7-volume series. It was originally 3 or 4, and then I think we suddenly got volume 5 and 6, and it was like, wow, she's still printing this. She's still churning this series out. This was a versus situation, so go check out that video where I read both of them and decided which one was more toxic. Obviously, Crimson Spell is a fantasy one about a prince who's trying to discover why he is cursed, and Punch Up is about a guy who works at a construction site and the architect he ends up living with, and a lot of other things as well. In May, we had No Touching at All. This is by Yoneda Ko, as well as the spin-off series Even So I Will Love You Tenderly. And this is the story of a workplace romance and kind of going through the trauma of your past. In June, we had Antique Bakery by Fumi Yoshinaga. This is a DMP 4-volume series. Volume 4 is pretty tricky to get hold of. We're both lucky that we were able to get it so we could read this series. This is about a group of men who end up running a bakery and at the same time discovering a mystery and trying to work out what's happening and being somehow connected to the disappearance of children. So it's quite an interesting series and beloved by many. For July, we had the 2-volume Treasure by Ryu Yamakami. This is also a June manga title. So many this year. June manga titles. And this is actually 2 volumes and in print at the moment, but it is actually a 4-volume series reduced down into 2 tankobons. So they are kind of omnibus. This is a story about... I honestly can't really remember exactly. A fish out of water story as someone who comes to live in the big city and gets taken advantage of left, right, and centre. I think that's the only way I can actually describe this story. Yeah, and not good? Yeah. For August, we did Tea for Two by Yaya Sakuragi. This is a blue title, so the old Tokyopop defunct BL imprint. This is 4 volumes, and it's the very start of spin-off season. This is about a kind of Yankee-esque karate, some sort of martial arts kid in school who accidentally ends up having to join the tea ceremony club and I guess falling in love with the guy who's tasked with making him into a proper man. Tea for Two is actually quite good fun and a good 4-volume series. For September, we went with a Net Comics title. This is Chus Scramble by Yuho Jun, and this is a 3-volume sci-fi military-based story with lots of monsters from another world and intrigue and corruption and government interference and a little bit of boys' love sprinkled on the side. This was Yuho Jun's first work, and so a debut, and it kind of shows, but it was still very interesting. October had a buddy read with Bizarre Individual as well as Katie, and this was the 3-volume series Incubus by Yaoi Neko. This is a Kitty Media title, and it's one we have been wanting to read to get off of our TBRs for quite some time. This is an OEL, which is Original English Language manga, and you would never know because you would never know. This is about, oh my god, this is about a guy who has dreams of a guy sexually assaulting him and then wakes up and finds that the man is actually alive and real and not human. So nonsense ensues, and maybe that's too nice a way of describing the plot of this. Yeah, 3-volume series. In November, we had another June manga title. This is Only the Flower Knows by Rihito Takarai. This is a 4-volume series, not 3, although the 3 volumes are called Only the Flower Knows, and the 4th volume is a kind of spin-off prequel called At the Flower Capital, but I do recommend that you read them all 4 as an actual series. I originally thought that wasn't the case, but no, after reading it, very much is the case. 4 volumes. This is about 2 university students who meet and find that they have a connection that they both want to develop into something deeper, but are a little bit wary of doing so. And it's beautiful, and it's Rihito Takarai, so of course it is highly recommended. And the final read for the buddy read for this year, 2023, was Hide and Seek, also by Yaya Sakuragi. This is a Sublime title, so Viz Media's BL imprint, and this is the spin-off of the spin-off of Tea for Two, and this is the story of 2 adult men who are getting together and falling in love, and it's wonderful. One is a gay man and one has a bisexual awakening, so you know I love that stuff, and a very good 3-volume series. Now, last year I went through some disappointments, some surprises, and some hits. So we're going to start with the disappointments first. And the first one is Deadlock. This being a light novel manga adaptation maybe has something to do with it because the artwork is stunning, absolutely gorgeous. But this was also, I think Sakiaida or Yu Takashina. Is it Yu Takashina who's the artist? Their first work for their first manga full time. They were just doing cover art illustrations, and of course they would. Look how gorgeous, gorgeous that is. And inside it is very, very beautiful. But I'm not too sure the adaptation worked. And I have read some light novel manga adaptations in 2023. Some were very well done and some were not. And unfortunately, Deadlock was not one that I think was terribly successful. It felt like there was an awful lot not being portrayed. And there was also a large sections of block text that I felt if it needed to be put into the story, it could have been shown and not told, that kind of thing. So there was an element of that for Deadlock, but also just the story was not great. And that's because Deadlock itself, these first 4 volumes are just, it's just the first little tip of a story that continues for volume after volume after volume in light novel form. So there's so much more to this story that we're not getting. And unfortunately, the manga really falls short in terms of storytelling and conclusion and a sense of satisfaction. Although I have to keep on harping on that it is stunningly beautiful. The artist is amazing at drawing, but just unfortunately the story itself or the way that it was told, I can't really be sure because we don't have Deadlock, the light novel, in English. It just didn't hit for me, and so it was a bit of a disappointment because it has taken so long to get the final 2 volumes. They were, I think, both published, volume 3 and 4, in 2022, so that we could read this in the January of 2023, that's right. But volume 1 and volume 2 had been published years ahead, and we were just waiting and waiting and waiting. So we finally got the 4 volumes, but it's just not really enough of the story, and so that's why it was a bit of a disappointment. Now the next one that was a bit of a disappointment was Treasure. I'm not doing this in order, but I'm gonna just say this was a disappointment. 1, because it was absolutely horrendous, and 2, because it had sat in my drawer for years. So I owned this for years, not like Deadlock, but I had to wait for years. But Treasure I owned for years, and both me and Katie had said, "Oh, how about Treasure? How about Treasure?" a few times in the course of 2 years. Shall we get round to reading this? It's only 2 volumes. They are thick. And we didn't really understand why. Of course, we now know that they are omnibus volumes. And the way that mangaka generally at this time period kind of got their start was by doing one-shots. And you would do multiple one-shots until one of the one-shots was very successful and got good feedback. And then you'd be allowed to do, or you would try to do, or you'd be able to pitch your series. And often with the way that they print them, you would get 2 or 3 or 4 chapters from an actual story, and then you get an extra couple of one-shots in the tankobon, and that's how it ended up being a 4-volume series, which is why we got the 2-volume omnibus version that was republished. And that was the thing. This is a super old story, and you can tell because the tropes in this are the most toxic of BL. And I like to think that, and I always say that, you know, some of the toxic BL tropes are not actually BL tropes, they're just toxic romance tropes. But it really felt like this was the epitome of toxic BL tropeness, all wrapped up into one absolutely appalling work. It was a slog to get through, and I hated every second of this story. I did not understand any of the motivations of the characters. It was appalling. A fish out of water, guy goes to the big city from a small island and ends up being sexually assaulted by his cousin. I mean, this is everything that you could imagine being bad about BL. This is it condensed down. And I thought, I thought Challengers was bad, but actually, in terms of the worst BL, this is definitely up there, if not the top. I mean, I honestly have to say this is the one of the worst. One was for a long time one of the worst things I read in 2023. I'm not entirely sure if it's gonna get the top spot, but in terms of worst things I read this year, this is definitely in there. Absolutely 100%. And I can't deny it because if you watch my vlog, you can see this is abysmal. And the thing was, I had high hopes. I didn't even have high hopes. I had hope. like like a portion of hope that this was going to be good. And it was terrible. Absolutely appalling. And the next one, the last disappointment I'm going to talk about, is such a sad one to mention. And it's so weird because I never actually read the physical of this. No Touching at All by Yorida Ko. And in some respects, Even So I Will Love You Tenderly is not quite as bad, but this one is pretty bad. And the big disappointment is that this is actually translated by Jocelyn Allen. And so I was like, oh, I'm here for a good time. This is going to be great. No, it was not. And I don't understand why. But in reading this, it was very clear that I'm not going to lie, and I never lie about this. I read scans. I read a lot of scans. I read scans like you would not believe. Like a super scan reader. Which is why I was so, like, I will get everything that's been published in English as a sort of, not penance, but as I feel like I should, but also I want to read these things, I want to own these things, and I want to support in some way, but I also want to have them. It's that whole thing. So I know I read this, and I read it as it was being scanulated, each of the chapters coming out. And then the physical came, and it was really difficult to get because they did such a small print run. But I did manage to get one eventually. And then it was super difficult to get again. And we did this earlier in the year, literally like a couple of weeks before Manga decided to announce that they were re-localizing this title. And I don't think we had anything to do with that, but we were like literally on the crest of a wave, on the zeitgeist of the BL. Like, wow, because we read this and it was so disappointing. The translation and the localization is where it falls down because it's Yoneda Ko. She doesn't miss. She doesn't drop the ball. This is a work of art. But this particular volume is not. And that was so disappointing because I was super excited going, at least we're going to get one Manga like that's amazing. It's going to be great. We're going to have a great time. I did not have a great time. I was severely disappointed by reading this because there were certain... it's difficult in Japanese. I know it's difficult in Japanese. Sometimes there's no subject and you don't know who it is that's speaking or who things are directed at. But this was just plain incorrect as to what I had previously read. And so for me, it was like, is this the way that this is supposed to be? Or is this actually incorrect? And it made me feel really bad because it's Jocelyn Allen and it's Yorida Ko. And so, yeah, this was pretty bad. So I'm really, really excited about the fact that they have a new localization. I need to get a copy. That's on my shopping list for 2024. Hopefully that there's still some available. I'll have a wee check today actually and see if there is. But yeah, No Touching All is such a disappointment. Probably the biggest disappointment out of everything this year for the buddy reads. Okay, on to some surprises. And the only way that you can get a surprise is if you, well, I guess haven't read it before, but No Touching at All was both a surprise and a disappointment. This is a disappointing surprise. A surprise that was disappointing. But generally, my surprises are ones that I've not read before. When it comes to what I read this year, there were 6 rereads and 6 new to me. So it has to be new to me ones. And the first one is Rin. This was a surprise, and it was a pleasant surprise. This was one that I wasn't really sure about because I have read some Yukine Honami Satoru Kanagi ones before, and I've not necessarily been like, oh, this was the best thing since sliced bread. And this isn't the best thing since sliced bread, but it was very, very good, incredibly competently well done. And for the time period, lacking in the toxicity that you might expect. So sometimes some of these old June manga titles really surprise me with how mature and how not cutting edge, but they're more modern than their counterparts of the same time period. How some, like Treasure, can be perpetuating these incredibly negative, toxic, problematic stereotypes. And then you get something like Rin, which is like a breath of fresh air. It's cute, it's sweet, it's dealing with underlying issues like trauma or mental health or sexual awakening, and it's doing it in a mature and level way, which really does feel like it could have been written fairly recently rather than, like a 20-year-old manga, like a lot of these are. And that's what was really good about it, as well as it being a sports manga, which is just so much fun. So yeah, Rin was a good surprise, a really nice one, and I do recommend it. It's very beautifully drawn, as you can tell from the artwork on the front. It's only 3 volumes. They're fairly easy to get hold of even now. And so yeah, this was a definite surprising hit, definitely. I would say this was a good one for the year, and it was better than I had expected due to the time period. Now, the next one that I have to say was a surprise was Chus Scramble. Now, I'm not saying this was a hit, but I'm not necessarily saying it was a miss. Now, I know that Katie might disagree. There were definitely some of the hits and misses were not necessarily the same to the same degree, but I think we generally agree on certain things. This was a debut, and it's very debut-y. But I kind of found myself enjoying aspects of it. Like the fact that it was a kind of evolving story, that there was a lot of plot going on. Sometimes it was confusing, but I didn't mind that. I don't know why exactly, because it was sci-fi or because it was, I mean, it's not great. It's not a great one. And you can also pick these up for quite cheap. But it was surprising how much I did enjoy the the kind of plot, the sci-fi-ness and things like that. So I don't know why it was, but this is a surprise. I don't know why. I wouldn't say it was a hit, but I'm not going to say that it's a total miss either. For a debut work, I think it's pretty good. I wouldn't mind actually having a read of Yoo Jun's other works, and I don't think they're available in English, just because once you've had a go at one, maybe you're a bit better, It's pretty darn good for a debut, I would say. It's very involving, but it is very tell not show, where I would prefer if they'd had a little bit more sophistication in their storytelling ability, and that's lacking. So I wouldn't say this is a hit, but it was a fairly pleasant surprise. Okay, let's do the hits, shall we? And we're going to start with the only non-reread for me for the year, because I had never read Antique Bakery, and we did. And I would say this was a hit. It's Fumi Yoshinaga, but it is old as well. And there's still a lot of very negative and almost incorrect, I would say almost very incorrect. Well, it's incorrect in some respects, portrayal of gay men and gay culture and things like that. But from the time period, it's not terrible. It's nowhere near as toxic. Although I definitely think that there is some toxicity in there. That's not necessarily from the author, it's from a character. And sometimes you're going to read things from a character, and the character and their negativity is necessary for the plot to be able to see a character overcome that negativity, or to show how that negativity is wrong and incorrect, and we should be doing something different about that in life. And the fact that this is the story of these 4 men and the people that they meet, and it's almost a slice of life, episodic, but at the same time there's this through story that runs all the way from through the 4 volumes about something that happened to one of the characters, and also that something that's happening in their life at that moment, and that, you know, police and detectives and stuff like that. So it had that air of mystery as well. So I really enjoyed it. It's Fumi Yoshinaga, so it very much has her art style and her way of storytelling, and her way of presenting female characters is so interesting, and they're just so much more rounded, grounded, and real in BL. And this isn't necessarily a BL story, but it is very much, you know, part of the BL lore. It's part of what it means to be a BL fan, I would think, to have read Antique Bakery, and I never had. So this was something that I needed to do. And I'm really pleased that I did, because it just goes to show how much Fumi Yoshinaga is an expert at her craft. I really did enjoy this. If you can get hold of the fourth volume, I would say give this a go. Yeah, Antique Bakery. It was as good as everyone said it was. So it was a hit. On to the next hit, and unfortunately all the rest are just rereads, for me anyway. Rabbit Man, Tiger Man. My God, do we need the 5 volumes? We need it, we need it. This might be my absolute favourite, I'm not sure, I'd have to think. And for the fact that it's only 2 volumes, it's Akira Honma, so she's got very distinct style, and I need to read the other Akira Honma in my collection. I keep trying to. For the last 2 years, I've kept trying to, and I never did. So I have some Akira Honma to read. But I want to find out what happens. Volume 2 is not the end of the story. And I knew that going in, that there was a volume 3 that Akira Honma had started. But then I think the Japanese publisher had folded, and that particular publication had become defunct. And so it was a third volume, like 3 chapters in, that's when they had folded. And so it took a few years for Akira Honma to get back and someone else to take on the rights and things like that. And then as we were reading this, the 5th volume in Japanese came out with a lovely box for a box set, and I was just like, oh God, it's beautiful. A new cover artwork, and I'm like, oh God, they're so cute. Oh. And I want to know what happens. What happens? And I think we need to start a campaign. And I said this at the time, we need a campaign to bring back Rabbit Man, Tiger Man. It is super cute. It's really quite tricky to get hold of these volumes now. There's only 2 of them, but they do sell for a much higher price than they're really worth. And I think it would be much better to just be like, hey, can we get the reprints? Can we get these new ones? And start a campaign so we can get the rest of the story, because it's good. It's good, guys. It's good. Of course, it does have that like animal characteristic type thing going on, which you know I love. So this was just super cute and silly, and it's got Yakuza, but in a fun way. Well, as much as Yakuza can be fun. But yeah, this was a good one. I really enjoyed it, and I really, really, really want to know what happens next. So yeah, this was a massive hit for me. It's almost like I forgot how good it was, and this was just a reminder of it. The next hit is Only the Flower Knows. Obviously, it's Rihito Takarai. This isn't everyone's favourite of Rihito Takarai, and it seems like the people who like 10 Count are like, oh, this is okay. And people who like this are like, oh my God, 10 Count's awful. I'm just like, I don't care, it's Rihito Takarai, it's beautiful artwork and interesting storytelling. So I like them all. But this is one that I actually do really, really enjoy. It's very, very beautiful. I think it speaks to me on a level because of the things that aren't said as much as the things that are. So yeah, this is a very, very lovely story that I was so glad that we have in print. I never thought that we would get. So yeah, this is a nice one. Now the final one that I wanted to show, which is a hit, is Hide and Seek by Yaya Sakuragi. This is the spin-off of the spin-off of Two for Two. And of course it is Yaya Sakuragi, and it is my favourite of, I think, all of the series. Mainly because it's about two men, grown men, and I do like that. It's about a gay man who, at this point in time, so when this was first getting published in 2011, is standing there saying, I'm gay. And that's pretty rare in BL, to have someone who is a grown man, who's accomplished, who's a doctor, so he's got respect and standing in the community, and he's unashamedly standing there in front of someone else who could have a very negative reaction to him and just saying, I'm gay. And that's so rare for 2011 in Japan. This was revolutionary. This was being published at the same time and in the same publication, because they're both Asuka published, as Love Stage. And Love Stage was fun, a lot of fun, but it also perpetuated a lot of negative stereotypes and incorrect things about gay relationships. Whereas here, this is about a gay man who is unashamedly saying, hey, I'm gay. And just being able to say that in a BL publication is kind of rare, which it shouldn't be. By 2011, it shouldn't be. He's unapologetic, as he should be, but also he's in no way confused. Whereas here's a straight man who, when being told, but the other thing is the gay man is there, the doctor is saying, I also find you attractive. I apologize if that makes you feel uncomfortable, but I don't want to lie. He is upfront. He is honest. He completely strips away the stereotype of the gay man seducing the straight man, because it's the straight man who turns around and says, hey, you know what? I might not be quite as straight as I think. I am open to seduction. Hey, how about giving it a go? Maybe I'm bi. I find you attractive. Like, this is revolutionary, because one, they're a grown-ass man saying this. It's a grown-ass man who's saying, I am open to seduction. And it's just sex. It's just like a new experience. And if you're open to that, I'd be open to it too. It's the negotiation of consent and feelings and physicality. And it's just everything about it just screams subversion to the norm of BL from 2011. And I love that. I absolutely love it, because there's no shame, there's nothing said derogatory, there's nothing negative about being in a sexual relationship with another man. It's so good about that. It just feels great. And the thing is, it starts just on a sexual exploration note, and it ends in such companionship and domesticity, and I just love that too. Because you know at the end of the series that Tanihara is going to need some emotional support for what's to come, and it's the importance of having someone there in your life. Oh, so good, so good. So yeah, Hide and Seek is a reread for me, but always a good time. I always love it, especially those first couple of chapters when you're just like, ooh, get it. Bisexual awakening. Now they don't talk about bisexuality, and I think that would have been the perfect thing if they had actually mentioned that too. But that might have been a little bit of a step too far for 2011, 2012 in Japan. But I still absolutely love this, and it is, of course, a hit. So that just leaves me to think of in what order I would rank them. So I'm going to need about 5 minutes to actually get this and rearrange them all and see which ones I actually want to put above. So this is maybe going to take a few minutes. But I did this last year, and I feel like I need to do this again and see which one I think is my favorite and which one is my absolute least favorite. Okay, so here is my ranking of enjoyment. Now at the bottom, I have Incubus by Yaoi Neko, Yaoi Neko, and Treasure by Ryu Yamakami. They're kind of equal worst. I'm not too sure. I'm going to have to maybe toss a coin. At different points in time when I look at them, I feel more anger to one than the other. And it is anger. It is almost rage. The loathing I feel for these two, they were so awful. So awful. Like, why would we choose to? And just a little bit above that is Punch Up. I also do not enjoy Punch Up. I really did not enjoy a lot of the toxicity in that. I would say content trigger warnings for that one. Above this is Yoneda Ko, and I do not want to say this. It's not because of Yoneda Ko. I need to make everyone fully aware that I love no touching at all. And I love Yoneda Ko. But it's the reading of this and the disappointment of the localization that puts it there. Because the actual story and the actual Yonedeko is not here, it's up here. And it should be up here. And I was expecting it to be up here, which is why it's such a disappointment and why it's down there. And the fact that it's even below Deadlock in terms of how much I was disappointed in it. Because I had expectations, whereas Deadlock, I didn't expect to enjoy it. And the artwork was a saving grace. And Chus Scramble, I didn't expect to like either. But I found it pleasantly captivating in its intricacies and of plot and nonsense. I had a good time with the nonsense. T for Two is above that by Aya Sakuragi. It's a very good, solid work. It's a little bit dated in some respects, but generally I like the relationship between the two main characters. Then we've got Crimson Spell by Aino Yamane. Fantasy, which is rare for me because I haven't really been enjoying fantasy this year. And I did enjoy reading the final few volumes. The artwork is just stunningly gorgeous. It's sexy as hell. Sexy as hell. Ayano Yamane, fuck me, she can do good work. Her art style is just mwah, chef's kiss. Then we have these two, and I have to say they're on a par with each other. I really enjoyed Rin, and I really enjoyed Antique Bakery. I think they were both equally good. I had a good time with both of them. So yeah, they're kind of like equal parts. And I would say Hide and Seek and Only the Flower Knows are both equal in my enjoyment. I think because Only the Flower Knows has more of a nostalgic quality for me. The fact that we have them in print now makes it just slightly more enjoyable for the fact that it also has the 4th volume. So it's just more. So that's why I put it above that one. And then the top one is Rabbit Man Tiger Man, because when I look at everything that I read, I had an absolutely chuffing great time with Rabbit Man Tiger Man. It was brilliant. It was so much fun, and it was only 2 volumes, and I desperately need to read the rest of the series. So I really hope that we can get them at some point in time. Someone can do it, maybe. I don't, even if it was digital, I would be like, yeah, let me read that shit. Give me that straight into me. I need to know how it works out, because there was a lot of story in those 2 volumes, and there's probably a lot of story in the full 5. So I desperately want to know what happens in this Yakuza story with the small doctor. So yeah, this is my final one. I'd love to know how Katie did hers. What would her ranking be? I think it would be quite interesting to find out. But yeah, I think we have some similar, but maybe some different. It would definitely be interesting. And yeah, unfortunately, the one that I did with Bizarre Individual and Katie together is right at the bottom. Sometimes it's treasure. Some days I feel treasure is worse. So this is kind of giving away some of my worst books of 2023, but not all of them, because there's definitely some other ones to put in there too. But yeah, this is a pretty firm decision on all of my reads for the buddy reads we've had. So that is everything that we read, and those were the hits and the misses, the surprises, the disappointments of the year. Hopefully we will be able to have some really interesting reads in 2024 as well. I'm looking forward to whatever we come up with. As usual, once again, a big thank you to Katie for being my buddy read partner for the year, and helping me get through some of my unread, my TBR of the backlog of BL that I have in my collection that I've had for quite some time and not actually been able to get through and read. Some of them have been a real challenge. Also a big thank you to Bizarre Individual for doing a buddy read with us as well. Not my favourite, but I'm sure enjoyable for some people. Yeah, it's been an interesting year, probably not the most successful in terms of some of these selections and choices. So yeah, fingers crossed for 2024 that we get to do some really interesting ones, help ourselves get through our backlog as well. Yeah, I'd love to know what everyone else thinks about some of our buddy reads for the year. Are any of these your favourites? Have I slated your favourite? I'm so sorry. Do you agree with me that some of them are great and some of them are not. So yeah, I would love to know your thoughts on this. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. Take care, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!